All right, so we're going to open it up to public discussion here in the chambers. So anybody wants to speak, they'll have 3 minutes to speak on any item that is not on the agenda.
Hey, good evening, Margate resident. The CRA event policy says on the very first line, sponsors use of the CRA property shall be restricted to sponsors who have a business, nonprofit organization, or religious institution in the city of Margate. This board always makes an exception to that part of the policy when it's one particular event sponsor requesting it. Although the policy does not give the board the leeway, it says shall be restricted, shall meaning mandatory. I went back to meetings from 2020 and only one type of event was able to have that policy violated in their favor by this board. October 2020, you approved the Margate Kiwanis Club to sell trees. July 2021, you approved Margate-based Boy Scouts to have an event. August 24, 2021, this CRA board approved the Broward County Fair 4-1 with an out-of-town sponsor. I checked the votes. In October 2021, an out-of-town sponsor from Plantation faced scrutiny from board members for not being Margate-based or a nonprofit, and an agreement did not move forward. That same meeting, a Margate-based organization was granted permission to sell trees on CRA property. February 2022, Margate Waterfront Days was granted permission. July 2022, you approved a Margate-based organization to sell trees. August 2022, permission was granted to a non-Margate-based sponsor by the name of the Broward County Fair, which passed 4-1. You should be able to remember your votes. I checked them. And then October 18th, 2022, the event sponsor was changed to another name of another out-of-town sponsor, which you still passed 4-1. And then January this year, this board approved a carnival for an out-of-town sponsor, which passed 4-1. And in February, that same out-of-town sponsor came before you for an hour's extension for the event. After the event policy requirement was mentioned, you then allowed them to change the sponsor name to a Margate-based organization, although their initial application showed a non-Margate address. Most recently, in August of this year, this board approved a temporary use agreement for an out-of-town sponsor to hold their upcoming fair in Margate. It turns out the only time you approve a non-Margate-based organization to use CRA property was to host a carnival or fair. And so happens that Carnival's operator has made max campaign contributions to the majority of you sitting up there. Are you only willing to violate your policy for campaign contributors? The current event policy does not give you the right or authority to waive any of those requirements. Otherwise, it would say so. It's been amended 3 times. Most recently in 2015.
30 seconds.
There's been plenty of chances to add it. The only discretion it gives the CRA is to extend times and waive or adjust fees for good cause. Read your policy before casting your vote. Thank you.
Item 4A is the consideration of the approval of a temporary use agreement for the use of the Margate CRA property located at 5701 Margate Boulevard to hold a Jesus Tent Revival. This is before your consideration this evening.
Okay, what is the wish of the board? I'll make a motion and I'll pass the gavel. So I'll make a motion to approve it. I see that the petitioners are here and I'd like to hear at least what they're going to say.
Then I'll second for you for discussion,
Okay,
but I'll let you speak first.
okay, so the vice mayor will be in charge now for your item, so. Did you want to speak, Arlene?
After you.
Okay. So I was asked to put this on the agenda and I usually put everything on the agenda and I think that we should just take out what the event possibly is and just think about it as somebody coming in to host an event in our city. So I have no problem with it. Wish you best of luck, but see what happens.
All right, so now push. You want me to push my button? Okay.
Who knows who wants to speak?
Okay. I noticed that this is a church from Cooper City and a church from Coral Springs, so I have to ask the obvious question: why Margate? And so someone needs to explain to me why, if your group is from both cities, why would you come to the city of Margate rather than the city of Coral Springs and Betty Stradling Park? And I got to take this out so I can see it. And Betty Stradling Park are those parks. My other problem is, as Mr. is going to come up and read to us, that our event policy precludes organizations that are not in the city of Margate, and he has chastised us at least 4 times today for having broken that policy before. My third is, Margate Boulevard and 441 with that traffic is the last place on earth that I would want a congregation of anything going on, because there hasn't been a day where we haven't flipped a car over there or had a terrible accident. And the last thing I want is a distraction of 100-foot tent for people to wonder what's going by. And that is my greatest concern. You're driving me nuts with that. Thank you. Somebody would like to respond, because those are going to be my questions for the entire time.
Mr. Vice Chair, you have the gavel.
Oh, okay. Please answer the question. Sorry, please come on up, somebody who's a representative to answer board member Schwartz's question.
Can ask you to state your name.
Yes. My name is Paul Bolin. I am the executive pastor of the Pentecostals of Cooper City, which you already referenced. And also representing here tonight is our campus pastor, Tracy Lewis, who is our Coral Springs campus pastor. I think there was 2 questions that you asked us to speak to.
The first one is why Margate?
Why Margate? So in our society today, in every study, there is an epidemic of depression, anxiety, suicidality. We want to create an outdoor event where we can provide encouragement to the community. Margate just so happens to be close to our Coral Springs campus. We wanted to use an outdoor event for the reason I stated. And so this was the closest facility, closest property that we could do that, which is why we came to Margate.
Why not in Coral Springs? They have lots of parks.
Betty Stratton Park, which is very close to where the campus is in Coral Springs. You know where that is?
I don't personally know where that is. No.
Oh, then I'll tell you. It's Wiles Road, a little bit west of Coral Springs Drive, a lot closer to your facility than we are. And quite frankly, not in the spot where, even though it's Wiles Road is well traveled, not the kind of spot that 441 and Margate Boulevard is as far as traffic and everything else.
And last question.
And I have to remind myself,
Don't worry about
it'll come back. What else did I ask?
Why not Margate?
Well, I asked that one.
Why Margate?
Oh,
Traffic.
oh yeah, well, that spot is.
And the policy.
And yeah,
Oh,
and the
and-
policy that Mr. Clerk is going to read to us again, that says that we are violating our policy because you are not associated with the city of Margate.
I can't really speak to the policy. I don't feel like that's my jurisdiction to comment on that one way or the other. I'm not sure why some events were approved by outside organizations and some were not. I would just ask for the same consideration any of those other outside organizations were given. But as to the validity of the policy, I don't feel like that's my.
No, I wasn't
There it
asking
is.
you to defend our policy.
Yeah.
I was explaining that, and actually it wasn't a question for you to answer, it's just a comment,
Mhm.
that our policy precludes us from doing this in the city of Margate.
Well, as Mr. Drivey pointed out, apparently there's been other organizations outside
Mhm.
for for-profit considerations. And so ours is not a for-profit consideration. Ours is to be a benefit to the community. So I would just ask for the same consideration for whatever reason the policy was amended or changed or whatever that circumstance was. I would just ask for the same consideration that the for-profit organizations were given.
Board member Rosario, it's your
Yeah, I
turn.
was gonna say in some of those instances, though, there was a city
Space.
member of the city that sponsored the event.
Correct.
Like, I think Margate.
The waterways.
The Waterway
What- yeah.
Foundation, right.
Okay,
My concern, very good question. I mean, I would, Coral Springs is twice the population as ours. Cooper City is. My concern is the location. I mean, we have a beautiful covered sports field that would probably make your outside event 5 times as good as what you have planned,
and they can rent,
but it's the location
they
and
can rent it, yeah.
I'm
sure.
trying to see how I can carefully say this. It's not attack on any religion. I grew up Roman Catholic. I've been confirmed, so I believe in Jesus. My wife's Jewish, so I'm
I was
all about
confirmed too.
multiple faiths and whatnot. But the people here tonight seem like very good members of society. But in any case, you have people that like to abuse it. We see for the last couple of years now, we've had people want to have Satanist demonstrations on Margate Boulevard, and we can't have a menorah out there because then they wanted something else. And So we had to do,
A festive holiday.
right, so we had to get rid of the religious trees and dreidels and, or a dreidel
Menorah,
is,
menorah.
right, the
Dreidel is
menorah,
okay,
dreidels
the
allowed.
menorah was not.
My concern is that we get other groups with ill intentions that want to use that corner for the wrong reasons. So I have an issue with the location.
Okay. And.
I'm not opposed to it if it was.
Anybody, I don't see any other lights. Oh, sorry.
I'm just gonna throw a Hail Mary out here. I don't know if you guys
You're
are,
gonna need one.
if you guys are, if you need that exact piece of property, but, what board member Osorio was saying is we do have an unbelievable covered field. And, if that's what it would take to have your event there, I would have no problem with it. And I don't know if that would have to come back again, David, or could we amend it to?
Depends if they want to rent it.
Well,
It
that's
depends
what I'm
if-
saying.
It depends if they want to rent it
That's
and
what I'm saying. If some of you
looking
guys would
into
want to
that.
look into, and I don't know if there's a time certain with your event, but it's unbelievable. The location is great and,
And that, yeah, if I might, that, I believe that's a process that goes through the city's Parks and Recreation
Mhm.
Department with respect to the use of the covered sports field.
Okay.
They handle the.
Right, we have an
process.
ILA with the city where they handle rentals of the covered sports field.
okay. So that would depend on how the vote goes. You always have that option. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. And I think you'll be 100% happier of having it there.
Thank you for the suggestion. We'd be happy to consider that as well. Of course, we'd have to check with city officials to see what the process is, but we're happy to do that as well. I would ask just one favor. I believe our campus pastor wanted to address the board as well as to why he was interested in that particular location.
That'd be great.
Hello, Tracy Lewis, campus pastor of Pentecostal Coral Springs. I am a resident of Margate. I live up by the hospital. Mr. Philip Rodolph over here also is a member of Margate. We have several members that do live in Margate. So that is one reason that we wanted a property. Another reason is the location. The parks that you referred to, I did not feel like that those parks would be adequate as far as parking and for what we've been able to do. This seemed like a great location to us. The third question, that would be my answers to your first two questions. The third one, we already spoke to that, so I don't have any comment on that.
Okay, so we have at the covered sports field, at least 2 events during the year that have 5,000 plus people.
Which, on that note, Mr. Rodolph and I, actually, and Victor Barajas, he's my assistant pastor, we all three did look at the property there. And I spoke to somebody I have an email that I have communicated with about that. We preferred this location because of its centrality, it's right there local where people could see us and be, right there. And it felt it was bigger and not in a side neighborhood. That would be our preferred location on 441. We would consider that, as Pastor Rollins already stated, though.
Because again, my concern is if we allow it for one group. Because you have to understand, that's a prime like picketing location for protests. So you could get a group with ill intentions, or racist or anti-Semitic or something, then we would have to let them. I know as disgusting as that sounds, we would have to let them if we allow this group.
Any other questions for these gentlemen?
That's why I'm just concerned about the.
I'm sorry. Any other questions for these gentlemen?
No.
All right, then, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public want to add anything?
I admire and I can empathize with the kind of event that they want to hold. But it's a slippery slope. And I believe that we should not host a religious event for any organization that doesn't have brick and mortar and a congregation that resides in Margate. Because as we mentioned before, if we allow this, a Satanist organization, any kind of other organization can come in and decide to have an event here. I don't think we should host it. I think we should only host it for any religious organization, but they must have a brick and mortar and a congregation in the city. As much as I would like to see the revival happen. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Now it's my turn. Margate resident.
It's moot.
You've probably heard half of it already. And I'll just, yeah, just, the CRA policy says on the very first line, sponsors, use of the CRA property shall be restricted to sponsors who have a business or nonprofit organization or religious institution in the city of Margate. And I could only assume the reason for that, for this requirement, is because that property is paid for and supported by Margate CRA taxpayers. So it should benefit the taxpayers. You denied other non-Margate based applicants in the past. I have nothing against this applicant or the reason for their request use, but I'm for following the rules, especially when they've been made and adopted by a governing authority, being this board. And, just like I said previously, this event policy does not give any leeway to the board to approve any organization other than one that's Margate based, shall's a mandatory legal term, does not allow any deviating. And the application which this applicant filled out, along with all other applicants have filled out, says on line 2 of the application, sponsor an organization must be a business, nonprofit organization, or religious institution located in the city of Margate. In which we've discussed, this organization is not Margate based. And I do like board member Serio's recommendation of the covered field that gets them in shade, covered, and we've had big events there. And also the picketing issue could be something. So, and that would be fine because that is not CRA, because that is a licensing agreement with the city of Margate. So they would have to go through the city of Margate for that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Please call the roll.
Board Member Simone,
No, because of our event policy.
Board Member Serio,
No.
Board Member Schwartz,
No,
Vice Chair Caggiano,
No.
Chair Rosano.
Yes.
Motion fails 4-1.